Hi, my name is Will, and welcome to the Distorted Transmission for today. Riffs and Things from Invercargill, New Zealand, a trio of hairy, beer-loving riff enthusiasts. Today I'm chatting to a band called Filth Wizard. How are you?
Good, how are you?
Pretty good. Could we do intros, please? I know you're a three-piece. There's only two of you there, so could you introduce yourself and the missing member, please?
Yep, so I'm Hannah. I play bass. We've also got Tyler. He's the guitarist, but he couldn't make it today.
And I'm Joseph, and I play the drums.
And you've got a Shure Beta snare mic as a microphone.
Yeah, that's what we've got to deal with at the moment.
Band history. I know you guys have been around for about 3 years. Could you tell me about perhaps where you met, why you decided to form this band, things like that?
We all met at the Southern Institute of Technology. We all studied music there. Joseph and I also studied audio, but I was 2 years below Joseph and Tyler when they were studying. And we actually formed the band because I was recording an album as a project for study. The assignment was record a concept album. And I knew that Joseph had some songs written that he hadn't recorded, and I thought they were really good. So I thought, why don't we do something with this? And I asked him if he'd be keen to record it, and he was. He played all the instruments on that particular album, actually, except the harder guitar parts, which we got Tyler to play. Right. So that's pretty much how we started. We were probably about halfway through recording the album when one of the tutors asked us to play a gig, which was quite funny because at the time we weren't a band. Like, I didn't know any of the songs. I wasn't even part of the band. Tyler didn't know all the guitar parts. The only person who knew what was happening was Joseph. But we pulled it together. We played okay at the first gig. We did play a cover as well, which was not our proudest achievement, but it was fine. It was all good. And then we found that we just really enjoyed playing together, and it kind of stuck.
So you've been around for about, 3 years?
2018, yeah.
You actually released an album soon after that.
That was that album that kind of brought us together in the first place. That was almost exclusively written by Joseph. It turned out quite good, so we decided that we were happy to release it. Yeah.
Quite good.
I don't know. I mean, obviously it's a huge learning experience. And for me, because I obviously recorded it and also mixed it, there's a lot of stuff I do differently now. But for the time, considering I was still studying as well. You
released a 9-track album entitled Sleep Eater in October last year, following up the 9-track album released in 2018. Both were recorded at the Southern Institute of Technology, as you mentioned. So let's talk about the creation of that album, the second album, Sleep Eater.
Being how this the first album was mostly kind of written by me, by myself. And before we even decided to start a band, we kind of started a band because of the album. The second one was a lot more collaborative in terms of writing. It wasn't just my ideas, it was stuff that Tyler and Hannah had written as well. So it was quite fun. A lot of the tracks are quite diverse just because we're all sort of still trying to find the sounds. It was quite fun in those regards.
Right. So
that was kind of soon after we sort of formed, we started writing those. So they were kind of written over the 2 or 3 years that we've been a band.
One thing I did find surprising was when I was checking out your band, your Facebook page and all that sort of stuff, there was no mention that you're actually an instrumental band. You don't have a vocalist.
A lot of that comes from when I was writing a lot of the stuff for the first album. I cannot sing at all. I'm not going to subject anyone to that. So I play drums mostly, but a bit of guitar and bass. So I just kind of worked with what I knew how to play.
So the reason why you sort of became an instrumental band was not necessarily by choice, it was by necessity, or was it a combination of the two? Tricky question.
Yeah, I think a lot of stuff I thought about sort of maybe having vocals when I was writing stuff earlier, when I wrote the sort of stuff for the first album. There wasn't really a band in mind, so we're a 3-piece band with only one guitar player, but on the album there's lots of different guitar layers and stuff, so over time we've learned how to arrange them, and you have to make a bit more room for vocals to fit over the top, whereas I like chucking lots of nice interesting little licks and fills and stuff in there.
There always seems to be more complexity in instrumental music to sort of compensate for that sort of missing vocal element. So
yeah, I think it wasn't so much we don't have a vocalist, so we have to make up for that. It was I always liked those little complexities, so it was more just wouldn't necessarily be room for vocals over the top of it.
The other thing also is that we kind of didn't know any vocalists that we thought would fit. And especially with metal, you have to be so careful. Like if you go for clean vocals, then you're edging towards rock or possibly being a little bit cheesier than what we wanted. But if you go for harsh vocals, then you're alienating a whole demographic as well of people who don't like harsh vocals. Plus, we don't even know what we would want over the top anyway. So we wouldn't even know who to look for.
All right, cool. So you did a New Zealand tour to support the album release of Sleep Eater. How did that go?
Definitely interesting. It was a bit of a nail biter, to be honest. Just with all of the COVID stuff, we went into level 4 about 2 or 3 months before the tour was supposed to start, and so that put a bit of a spanner in the works. I think all things considered, though, we were quite lucky that it even managed to go ahead, and we did get reasonable turnouts at most of the shows. And it was also just a really good experience for us. It was nice to spend so much time together and just kind of play all the time.
Did you have any sit-down shows, or were they all just regular shows?
The Christchurch show, the Invercargill show, and the Wellington show. Actually, yeah, 3 out of the 4 shows were sit-down shows. We did have to cancel our show in Tauranga, just because that was, I think, 2 days or 3 days before it, there was a COVID case up there, and we just decided we didn't want to be responsible for dragging it all the way down the South Island, because we were all driving in a van as well. So it's like if one of us had it, it would have been everywhere at that point. So that was a bit of a bummer, but that's fine.
At least you did manage to get the majority of them, and some people came out to listen to you, which is a good indication that at least your music's getting out there.
We were also super lucky, though, that we had really great supporting bands, especially the Wellington show. I think overall as a band was our favorite, because we had an incredible lineup. We had Pull Down the Sun on the bill, and they're obviously quite a big deal, and they're great guys as well. So we were just so lucky. And we had a band called Ovis, who are instrumental as well, but a completely different sort of breed of instrumental to what we are. And then we had a band called Odueno, who are just like a bunch of our mates. So it was just a really fun show. And that one actually was sold out as well, which, I mean, when it's a sit down show, isn't that hard to do, but it still felt really good.
All right. So do you have any more music in the pipeline to release, or will you collate it all into another album in, say, 1 or 2 years' time? Like, bands release singles, but it seems that you sort of prefer the sort of album vibe. So what's your plan?
This year we're kind of taking sort of a back step from some of the live shows and just kind of trying to write new music. So we'll probably go for more of an album thing, just write a bunch of songs and see what works, and then release it when they're done.
Cool. My next question is, how much of a handicap is it to be based in such a southern location?
Yeah, I mean, obviously it's difficult to go anywhere. Like,
well, you can't go south.
Yeah. Oh, wow. Yeah. In a weekend, if you wanted to do like a mini tour, or even just like a Thursday, Friday, Saturday kind of thing, you can only really do Invercargill, Dunedin, Christchurch. And Christchurch is already quite far, where then you're going to think twice about doing it.
I've never been to Invercargill, full confession, but driving from Invercargill to, say, Dunedin or to Christchurch, what's the time that takes?
Yeah, so to Dunedin is about 2.5 hours. So that's not too bad. That's something that you can squeeze in on a Friday after work. I mean, ideally you wouldn't. And then to Christchurch in our van, it's probably about 7 hours from Invercargill.
Oof.
Yeah, something like that. Yeah. So it is a bit of a mission, and it's the kind of trip that you don't want to do and then have to play that night.
Right.
The only other thing that's kind of a handicap, I guess, down here is that it is a very small community. Dunedin's got a really good music scene. I grew up in Dunedin, so I kind of like know people there. And in Invercargill, it's a bit tricky because there is a scene, but it's very small. Like, it's difficult if you're wanting to play gigs down here, trying to get not the same 4 bands on the bill every time.
Right.
So you end up with a lot of, which is kind of cool, you end up with a lot of shows that are heaps of different genres. we have a mate who organizes just like massive gigs with 8 bands or something, and then it'll just be, like folk stuff and like rock and punk and metal and just all sorts, because you have to.
There's a band called Abysm from Tauranga, and they sort of got known through the punk scene because there wasn't like a big metal scene there. So like the punk bands would sort of like let them play at the end or whatever. And, it was cool.
It was 2019, I think. Yeah. We played live heaps that year. We were lucky because we were kind of one of the only active bands, like properly active. And because we don't have vocals, so we're not really in the rock bracket or in the metal bracket, pretty much every rock or metal band that was coming down would ask us to open.
Right.
So we were really lucky, and that's where it's really good being part of a really small town, because there's not that many other options. Like,
We got to open for Skinny Hobos when they came down, and Three Meat Protocol, which is another Tauranga band, who are just awesome. Like, there's been like quite a lot of really cool bands from elsewhere in the country that have, for some reason, decided to play in Invercargill. Yeah, them as well.
Who was that?
Mr. Sterile Assembly.
I haven't heard of that band.
And they're pretty weird, but they're cool. Like, there's been just lots of cool bands from like all over the country who've come. That's how we ended up getting Pull Down the Sun for our Wellington show on the tour, is when they released their album earlier last year. We opened for their show when they came down, and there's just lots of like cool bands that we've like then gone to their sort of hometown and got them to play with us and stuff, which was quite cool.
All right, cool. Well, we're just about out of time, I think, so we should probably wrap it up. But is there anything else you'd like to add to the end of the interview?
one thing I would like to point out is just the art on Sleep Eater. You can see kind of bits of it up there. And I just wanted to give a shout out to our artist, who is a guy from Auckland, actually, called Damien Warden. So check out his art as well, because he's amazing. He's really great and awesome to work with as well.
Awesome. And Joseph, you have anything to add?
Thank you for everyone who comes out to our shows.
Cool.
The 4 people.
4 people and a dog.
Yeah.
All right. Well, thanks very much for your time, and I look forward to hearing your next release, I guess, in 2023, 2024, I guess. And thanks for watching.